On a previous post, I showed you guys how to deploy a virtual machine on Azure. Uh, this time I'm going to show you how to set up the endpoints for that virtual machine. And let's get started from the point where we stopped the last time. And as you can see right here, the first thing that you see once you go to the dashboard for that virtual machine is web endpoint status, configure web point monitoring. So if we go ahead and click on that, you can see that the endpoints are right here and you can run certain tests on it. This works fine, and as you can see, it shows you all the different endpoints that I have. And in order to add one, all you have to do is you click on add a standalone endpoint, add an endpoint to an existing load balance set. Let's just go ahead and do an add a standalone endpoint. And if you're running a server, the first thing that you want to do is you want to check what your server is running on. I know that my server is running on port 3000, so that's what I'm going to put down for the private port. And I am running a TCP, so that's what I set up there. And here you just go ahead and do HTTP. And as you can see, it automatically sets the public port to 80, and that's exactly what you want it to be. But the private port should be set to what you're currently running on your computer, which would be, in my case, 3000. And as you can see, it's giving me all these warnings right now because I already have an HTTP server running on port 80 and a private port 3000. This would also be different if I was running this for a Postgres database. And if you guys are trying to set up a Postgres virtual machine, I highly recommend taking a look at this blog post. It's a little bit old, it's from 2012, and it's using Ubuntu Server 2012 12.04. I recommend using port 14.04 at this point. It's got a couple better updates, and it's just the newer version right now. But having said that, everything on this post still works exactly the same, so you can just go ahead and basically follow these instructions and you're going to be able to get the exact same functionality working on a 14.04. So let's just point out one last thing. Usually when you install a Postgres server, it's going to be running on port 5432, and as you can see right here, that's the default server that gets run on there as well. So when I go back to set up my FTP port, notice that I'm running an FTP on protocol TCP, public port 5432 and private port 5432. And what this means is that on the outside of the VM, if you're accessing this website, you're going to be accessing port 5432 in order to come in, and this is where the VM is going to reroute you to under the internal port of the computer, which is also happens to be 5432. And notice that for my HTTP server, my public port was 80 and my private port was 3000. So these do not need to be the same, but if you are running an HTTP server, you do want the public port to be 80 because that's the default for websites, and you just should be keeping those the same. And for the private port, again, as long as it matches whatever your server is running, that will be okay. And closing that out, again, the SSH is how your system, how you're going to be able to use PuTTY in order to connect to it. Again, it's going to be serving on TCP port 22. And in order to get into that, if we go back to Treebook, dashboard, you can see what the DNS name is, and all you have to do in order to reach that, it's either you can use a public virtual port or you can use a DNS name /80/5432 or whatever port you're trying to reach. And that's it. Your endpoints are set up and you can easily access all the data on your machine. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.